Hi, this is Diane with Phil Sewing. Today we're going to introduce many of you possibly to a new foot. It's not a new foot, but it's a foot that sometimes gets forgotten, and it's called the braiding foot. Open up the package. I'll show you what's inside and how to get the most out of this particular foot, So here we go. So inside the package, of course, you've got the label, okay? You got a set of directions. Oops, sorry about that. Set of directions, which is always good, so don't throw those away. Keep those. So if you ever get into a pickle where you don't understand or you don't remember quite what I said in the video, then always refer back to the instruction guide. And here is the foot. I'm going to put this to the side, and now we're going to just talk about this foot for a little bit. Okay, this is what the foot looks like. Okay, I'm going to get my little pokey tool out here to refer to certain areas. Okay, right here is a screw, which you can tighten it, loosen it, and this is all dependent upon how width your braid is or how wide your ribbon is. And so whatever width that ribbon is, you're going to loosen it up, insert the ribbon, and then you're going to push this up to tighten it around the ribbon. Sorry, my hands are in the way. And then you're going to tighten down that screw. Okay. Once it's tightened, that's going to be the width, and we'll be walking through this a little later when I put the actual ribbon in there. Okay. But before we go there, we're going to go ahead and flip the foot over to the back side. Now the back side is where all the magic actually happens, because back here, with this here area, there's a little groove in it. And in that groove, and you're tightening down the front, if you remember, with the screw, and it's containing that ribbon so that it fits right inside that groove. That way when you're stitching using a zigzag or a straight stitch, whatever it might be, it's going to hold that ribbon in between this channel right here and feed it through evenly so that there's no possibility of it sliding out of place. And so you're going to be able to place that stitch right down the center of your ribbon, or your zigzag right down the center of that ribbon as well. So here again, if I flip it over to the front side, you also have the ability, this is a Baby Lock system, so it's got the snap-on system going on, and so you're going to remove your old foot and you're going to snap on your foot with this bar right back here. So there's a lot of creative functionality that you can utilize with this foot for any of your projects. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the foot to the machine. So I'm going to come back over here, click on release the J foot that's on the machine to begin with. I'm going to set that foot aside, and then I'm going to take this foot and we're going to put it underneath and snap it in place. Granted, my hand was in there, so I apologize for that. So you snap it into place, and so it's snug and ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to sew is a ribbon. Okay, with the ribbon, I'm going to just take it off, and I'm going to trim a piece, maybe about that long. Set that aside, and to load it onto the machine or onto the foot, I'm going to take the ribbon, loosen my screw at this point in time, and as you can see, this top section slides in and out. Secure that ribbon in that slot that you're seeing right up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and feed the ribbon through this open slot. You can use your little tool here to poke it through. And of course at home I have no problem doing this, but you know, when I'm in front of the camera it doesn't like to do what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to poke it through and put a tail behind it so that you can hold it and, you know, in place. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is secure this top piece to the back, sliding it to the back, and then I'm going to tighten down that screw. Once that screw is tightened, I'm ready to sew. Okay, so I'm going to take my piece of fabric, place it under the foot as such. Okay, now over here on my screen, over on the screen I'm going to select the stitch type that I want to utilize. For this project or for this demonstration, I'm going to use just a zigzag stitch. Granted, you have the ability to use any of your decorative stitches, and I do recommend that you go ahead and experiment with those and find one that you really, really like. But for this presentation, I'm just going to show you the zigzag stitch. So on this, I'm going to increase it to up to about 4.0. I'm going to, I could take it up or down. I'm going to just take it more of a wider zigzag or a lengthier zigzag and so forth. I'm going to leave my tension alone. Okay, so then I'm going to come over here to the machine. And so anytime you start a new project too, and this is just a friendly reminder, make sure you always change your needle out. Okay, anytime you start a new project, make sure you have a real sharp needle, and whatever size needle, that's up to you for the project or whatever you're stitching onto, you know. But in this situation, I think this is a size 11 needle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lower my presser foot. Okay, and I like to use my foot controller to guide this. Granted, you could just utilize, you know, your options up here for starting and stopping as well, but I like to use my foot controller. So I'm just going to go ahead, and it's like, of course, I went really fast to begin with, but I should slow up a bit to show you this. So you can go at any speed you want, but right now what I'm doing is I'm stitching right down the center of that ribbon. And of course you can use any thread color you so choose. In this situation I used a neon green. Okay, it's one of my favorite colors, but and it shows up nicely on the screen too. So I'm going to just go ahead and stitch through, and you can see right up in here how it's holding that ribbon right in place. Okay, I'm just going to lift up my needle, go ahead and raise my presser foot. Here we go. That's what that stitch looks like. Stitch right down the center of that ribbon. Very nicely. You can use rickrack in here as well. So what you need to do though is make sure you place it in the center and tighten down your screw and make your adjustments for this indicator in the front here for your width control. I have a different piece of ribbon such as this, and I'm going to show you how it's done. It has little loopies on the side of it, and this will slide very nicely under there too. So we're going to go ahead and lift up our foot. If you notice, you can lift up this foot pretty high so that you can get that ribbon inserted, and then you could pull it through and so forth like that. This time I'm just going to use a straight stitch. Okay, and we're just going to trim some of these other threads away so that's not interfering with the way it looks. Okay, so I'm going to just lower my foot control. Like I said, you can use any kind of stitch, decorative stitch as well. This go around, I'm just going to do like a straight stitch on it. And you can adjust your width, length, whatever it might be, or as necessary. Granted, you're going to, like I said before, you're always going to do a sample stitch out so that you have a real good idea as to how that looks. And notice how this guides very nicely right down the center again. And I'm just using the side of my foot over here along the edge of that ribbon that I had already placed. So I always try to find some kind of a reference as to which, or how to do a straight stitch or whatever it might be, you know. And I use the side of the foot along the edge of the ribbon right there. So I'm going to go ahead, raise my foot, pull it out, cut my thread, and there it's bright, but it's stitched right down the center of that ribbon, or down the center of this narrower ribbon. So you can use different widths of ribbon as well. Okay. Next thing I'm going to show you with this foot is how you can use cording. Okay. With this, I had some of this variegated cording that I had at home, so I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Right in the very top of this foot, right up in here, there's a little groove that goes down, makes a little channel, and in that channel you can actually slide your, call this cording, sorry. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. I'm going to loosen my screw and then slide that little guide back to create a smaller opening. I don't know if you can see that, but it's now a smaller opening, and that'll help guide that cording so it stays put right where it's at. Okay, now here, I'm going to cut this off a little piece, and I'll put my fabric back under. Okay, let's start up here. Now in this situation, I'm going to use zigzag stitch 1-10, and then I'm going to decrease the width of it 2.5, just so that it grabs hold on each side of the cording and does a zigzag. And of course, you're going to make those adjustments as needed. And of course, you can use whatever thread you want as well, whatever color. You can have it matching, you can have it contrasting, you can use a monofilament thread as well. I'm going to go ahead, raise that up, and then pull my cording through and cut my thread. There we go. And that's what that looks like. Okay. Now, to use, I'm going to trim this off down here and use this again for another option that we have. Another feature, you know, if you wanted to use a decorative stitch as well, you could go ahead and choose a different decorative stitch. It can be something like this, or something like this one, or that, something to that effect. I'm going to take that back up a little bit like that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and thread this through the opening again. Thread that through the opening. Okay, here we go. And then put your fabric underneath. And here we go. Put that back down. And here we're going to go ahead and do a decorative stitch. We're going to see how this looks on it. So with the decorative stitch, it's giving it a little bit different look. It's going to be pretty, you know, but you know, you're going to choose the the stitch of your choice, of course, and make your adjustments on the screen as needed. And notice how that just stays right in that channel. Okay, I'm gonna raise it and pull it out. And you can see how pretty that looks. Isn't that pretty? Now, another feature that I like, or it's not another feature, but you know, what you could also do is you could do like yarn. You could thread yarn through there as well, but you know, I'm going to let you experiment with the yarn on your own. But you could do the same things, or feed it through that little opening and let it follow the path. Now, another fun thing that I like to use this foot for is for gathering. Put that one aside. And what I've done here, I just cut a piece of elastic, you know, so long. I'm going to feed it through that opening as well. Feed it through there. You could use tweezers too to pull it through, you know. I like to do it the hard way, of course, so it's like, you know, tweezers sit there and I'm struggling. But anyway, what you're going to do with this is you're going to set up your machine for a zigzag stitch again, okay? Pretty much for the width of, so it sits within your elastic size. This is like a 1/4 inch elastic piece. Tighten that down again. And put your fabric underneath. Now this is great for gathering elastic. And one thing, I've got an extra little length behind there, so I'm going to hold on that and I'm going to pull on the front. I'm going to stretch that elastic. See what I'm doing? I'm stretching that elastic. And I'm going to be stitching while I stretch that elastic. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this length a little longer. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to pull on this and stitch right down the center. And this might take a little bit of practice to get. I'm going to go ahead and release it, pull it through, and cut my thread. Now I want to show you on the back side is how it gathered up the fabric to create that gathered effect that you might want to choose. And granted, when you do this, you're going to want to play around with it to know how tight you should be pulling that elastic to get the stretch or to get the gathers that you want to achieve with it. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to be doing, okay, with this foot. Okay. On this next one, I'm going to be using some pipe cleaner and show you how we can create, like, this would be great for ribbons, you know, if you wanted to put it on a ribbon. And so I'm going to do that, slide that through the hole. Granted, I'm going to make sure that it's out a little bit further because the opening is a little wider. Here, let's see. Okay. It's a little bit wider so that it takes that pipe cleaner and lets it feed through there properly. Okay, then I'm going to set this for a little bit wider stitch too. I think I'm going to do a 5.0 or so. Yeah, like that. Okay. So you don't want the needle to touch or to hit the wire in between. So that's why I widened up. And I'm going to make this a little bit wider or longer, the stitch. And notice how it goes on each side of that pipe cleaner. Just pull that through to remove it. Cut the thread. There's our pipe cleaner. And now what you can do is you can manipulate and to bend it whichever way you want it to bend. And so that would be really quite nice on ribbon, you know, if you're using it for decorative purposes, you know, it bends it and allows you to do that action. So there you go. So anyway, utilizing the braiding foot, you know, I think it's just a fun way to finish off a project. You know, you can add your own creativity to a lot of projects with this particular foot by adding your ribbons, your cordings, and also you can use like your pipe cleaners as well. And then of course this one is like really a lot of fun to create a gathered effect on some of your edgings or hems or whatever it might be. You can utilize this. So anyway, but the braiding foot is sold over here with Larry and Annette's at Phil's Sewing in Washington, Missouri. So if you're interested in this foot, or you know, if you need more information about how to utilize the foot, don't hesitate in calling. This is one of the projects that I created using the braiding foot, you know, utilizing you know, the ribbons and also the braids on each side of it. So just to give you a little bit of an idea as to what you can do with it, you know. So I think you'll really enjoy that braiding foot. Thank you.